Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'm here to talk some Blue Jays baseball with you for the next half an hour or so. And thank you so much for tuning in on this special day and time of Wednesday. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch, usually on Thursdays at 6 p.m., but life happens, scheduling conflicts happen, and so forth, so here I am tonight. And we stream live on Jays from the Couch's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube pages, channels, so forth. If you are catching the live version and you think of a question or comment, please do send it all in. I love that interaction with the audience. Think it makes the show just that much better. And if you're not catching the live version, but you still want to check us out, that's great. When you're ready for us, we're ready for you. You can catch the archive version on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, or you can also download and listen as a podcast. Any quality podcast carrier has all the Jays from the Couch shows. Speaking of which, I really hope you're tuning into the other shows as well. Lots of great content there. There's the main Jays from the Couch podcast. We're on hiatus again due to scheduling conflict this coming Monday, but normally we stream live on Mondays, 7 p.m. actually, hosted by Sean Doyle, senior editor, founder, and he's also always got lots of interesting stuff on the go, other people to talk to, and so forth. And then there is the other show, and this is very interesting. Steve Feck, if you've been watching the On Feck Circle, he is actually changing the show a bit, the format. So his new show, instead of being called the On Feck Circle, is Jays from the Couch Blue Jays Review. So the show will be focused mainly on Jays from the Couch, the websites, the writing, and so forth, and it's still Steve. If you like Feck for being Feck, there's still Feck in there. There's Feck toward the end of the show, so you can get that viewpoint as well. But just branching out a little bit, trying some different things. So hope you check it out. Should be very interesting to see once that gets going. Generally speaking, that's Tuesdays a couple of times a month, 6 p.m. So, so hello, Blue Jays fans, and happy Wednesday evening. And yes, it is a happy day, even though we got absolutely clobbered last night. That wasn't a lot of fun. Prior to yesterday's game, the San Diego Padres DFA'd public enemy number one, Rougned Odor. And in spite of that, they still managed to find a way to stink up the place. So 9-1, not too much went well yesterday, unfortunately. Not a good day for Alek Manoah. Basically very little went right yesterday. So with yesterday's loss, the Blue Jays fall to 8-2 in their last 10 games. I'll still take that, even if the two losses are ugly, and they were. In the other loss, if you recall, right before the All-Star break, the Jays were no hits by the Detroit Tigers. So, I mean, as demoralizing, I guess, as those losses are at the time, we have to remember that it's still just one loss, and it counts just as one loss in the standings, whether you lose a close game or you get absolutely demolished. It's one loss, and that's exactly what it counts for in the standings. And you move on and you try to do better the next day, which our Blue Jays will today. Try that is, fingers crossed. Excuse me a moment. All right, so before I get into the heart of tonight's order, leading off, as always, transactions in the last week since I was last with you guys. So I was prepared to say there weren't a lot of transactions, that if I was a leadoff hitter, the transactions over the last week would be the equivalent of hitting a weak ground ball out on the first pitch of the game. And then this afternoon, they kind of threw a curveball at us. So there were actually some moves earlier today which were a little unexpected by me, or partly expected and partly not. So what happened was they brought Jordan Lupo up to the Blue Jays from AAA. Jordan Lupo, if you remember, he's an outfielder, and he was with the Jays earlier in the season. He only had 6 at bats. He hasn't actually had a hit with the Blue Jays, and his OPS is 143, courtesy of, I believe, 1 walk. So they sent him down a while back. It wasn't all that surprising. In fact, he was actually outrated. So they took him off the 40-man roster because they decided they had better use for that spot, and he went unclaimed. So he's still here in the Jays organization. I wondered at first, what exactly are they doing? And then I took a little bit of a deeper dive into his stats. Jordan Lupo, a right-handed hitter, has an OPS of 1.004 at AAA versus left-handed pitchers. That's one thing that the Blue Jays really, really need, is somebody who hits well against left-handed pitchers. A lot of their hitters, a lot of their experienced, good hitters with really good major league track records just aren't doing that this season. I mean, the left-hand hitters, as long as they have wanted left-hand hitters, and now they've got like 4 of them, but none of them really do much against left-handed pitching, unfortunately. Excuse me. So you really need your right-handed hitters to pick up that slack. If you're going to bench most of the lefties, bench most of the left-handed hitters when a left-handed pitcher pitches for the opposition. And that's been one area where they really need something. So they're I guess, bringing Jordan Lupo up, give them another option when there is a left-handed pitcher on the mound, and see what he can do. So best of luck, welcome back, and all of that. To make room on the active roster, Nathan Lucas has been sent back to AAA. So bit of a revolving door there. I mean, they brought up Lucas actually to take George Springer's spot when he went on paternity leave, and then I thought they'd send him right back down, and instead they sent down Ernie Clement. Excuse me. And that move surprised me a little bit. I mean, Nathan Lucas did get the game-winning hits versus the Tigers in the final game against the Tigers right before the All-Star break there. So that was great. They kept him around a little bit longer. I don't believe he even got into any games since the break, if I remember correctly. So he's going back down to AAA. He's appeared in 25 games with the Jays with a 613 OPS. So how much of that is limited opportunities? How much of that is major league pitching is hard to hit, and you can do well in the minor leagues, and then it doesn't always translate to major league success. So who knows? It's interesting what they're doing with these guys, and a little bit of a revolving door, and bringing guys up, sending guys down, keeping guys, or bringing guys back to the major leagues, and at times when I myself don't necessarily expect it. I mean, are they trying to showcase different players? Excuse me. If they are, then that's not necessarily anything to sneeze at there, but I mean, you don't really know what's going on in Russ Atkins' head. So sometimes I wonder if he knows, but I mean, I'm sure that they're working on things. They're thinking about things and seeing if anybody has any trade value to other teams where they might want to get something back. So lots to keep an eye on. as well. So, as I mentioned, Lupo was taken off the 40-man roster earlier. So, in order to get him back onto the 40-man roster, a spot had to be cleared. And Adam Simber, who was already on the IL, has now been transferred to the 60-day IL with right shoulder impingement. So, I'm not particularly surprised that they moved Simber to the 60-day IL, as far as I'd heard, because he's been on the IL for a while. And from what I've heard, he hasn't even resumed throwing. So whatever's going on, it doesn't sound like it's going to be resolved anytime soon. I kind of thought what they might do is move Simber to the 60-day IL to get Hyunjin Ryu back on the 40-man roster. So the move I expected, the timing of it's not so much. But anyway, yeah, all the best to Adam Simber. I mean, he was good for the Jays last year and the year before when they traded for him. So unfortunately, not so much this year, but all the best to him in his future and all of that. So yeah, prior to those transactions, the Jays hadn't really made any moves with immediate impact for the everyday major league roster. What they did do, Hyunjin Ryu has already been on a rehab assignment, and they moved him up. So they started him at rookie ball and then at low A ball in Dunedin. Well, now he's been moved up to AAA. And he actually had a start at AAA on Saturday and did pretty well. He pitched 5 innings. Took him 66 pitches to get through 5 innings. He did give up 1 run on 3 hits, and he got 5 strikeouts. One of the things that has impressed me the most and has really given me hope, no walks. And in his 3 rehab assignments, so like 3 rehab appearances since he's been on rehab assignment, 0 walks. That is vintage Hyunjin Ryu. Hyunjin Ryu has never been a fireballing pitcher. When he has had success, which he has in the past, he has a number of pitches and he disrupts hitters' timing by mixing his pitches, changing speeds and location, and with pinpoint control. So it's really looking to me like a lot of the pitcher that Hyunjin Ryu used to be has come back. So he's scheduled to make another start at AAA on Friday. And then beyond that, nothing is definite. But if he keeps progressing the way he has been, it's kind of sounding like his next stop might be Major League Baseball with the Jays. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. Excuse me. All right, and then the other, it's not an official transaction yet, but it's announced that this is on the horizon. Chad Green finally is going on a rehab assignment as of Saturday. So Chad Green is a very interesting pitcher. The Blue Jays, as we know, signed him as a free agent in the offseason, knowing that he is coming off of Tommy John surgery that he had last season, and that ended his season prematurely. They knew that if they were going to get anything from him, it would be sometime in the second half. Well, here we are in July, 13 days away from the trade deadline, and he's finally ready to go on a rehab assignment. So I will be watching how he does, watching as in looking for live updates and so forth with keen interest, because he's somebody that could really make a difference. Actually, my Jays from the Couch colleague Bob Ritchie has an interesting article out that he wrote a little while ago about Chad Green and how he could be a real key. I think linchpin is the word that he used. If you hadn't read it, you should check it out. But yeah, if Chad Green can come back and be anything close to the pitcher that he used to be in the past, then look out. You've just added another leverage arm to the Blue Jays bullpen. In his career, Chad Green has a 3.17 ERA, 11.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, and 2.3 walks per 9 innings. That's an arm I'd really like to see out of the Blue Jays pen. So again, lots of interesting things to keep eyes out for. And that seems like a pretty good segue. Those are pretty much the transactions for the last week, to move into the heart of the order. And what I wanted to talk about this week is, of course, that this time of year, there are all kinds of rumors out there about what are the Blue Jays going to do, what might they do, what should they do, and are they going to be able to accomplish what they want to do. And as we know, they don't have the top farm system. Depending on how you look at it, they do have prospects. And anybody who thinks the Jays are completely devoid of the ability to make trades, I don't think that's realistic at all. But there are other teams out there who have better overall farm systems. The Blue Jays have promoted several players in the last several years. They are their major league players, a lot of them. Some of them have been all-stars, and still others, a number of them, have been traded away for established major league players who have helped the Blue Jays win now. Players like Jose Barrios, players like Matt Chapman. So you've got to expect that your farm system is going to take a hit when you make these sorts of moves. And that's certainly not a bad thing. But what happens when you've got 6 playoff spots in each league, so 12 teams making the playoffs, and then even after you look at the actual 12 playoff teams, usually right down to the wire, there's at least a couple of other teams that are close enough to the hunt that they consider themselves to be in it, and they want to be buyers rather than sellers. That being the case, anybody who has anything of quality and is far enough out that it's realistic for them to sell, it could actually be a seller's market, and they could demand some really high prices to get something of quality back. So what if, for whatever reason, Ross Atkins swings and misses with everything he wants to do? And or what if there is a thought behind the scenes that, you know what, we've done so much with this team, we've built it up over the years through promoting our players, through the free agent signings, through the trades that we've made, that we actually think we've got enough. So what would that look like? Now, before I get too much into this, understand I am not saying that my preferred scenario is for the Jays to do nothing. I want them to add. I want them to go for it. I want them to win the 2023 World Series championship. But what happens if they don't make any trades? So I'll take a look around at the team and give my thoughts on that in just a moment. Need my ginger ale, by the way. That's not beer, if anybody was wondering. Anyway, okay, so let's start with the pitching. So first, the rotation. And a lot of what I've heard from Blue Jays fans and even some of the media all along during the season is that when everybody's healthy, they've got a pretty good top 5 as far as the rotation. What they didn't really have is a lot of starting pitching depth. And I mean, to be completely fair, it's not like they didn't try. I mean, they put together some guys down at AAA. Unfortunately, most of that just really didn't work out very well. So you've got your top 5. Kevin Gausman, as we know, has been fantastic. He was an all-star, decided to skip the actual game. But once you're chosen, it goes down in the books and your career stats that you were an all-star that year. So congratulations to Kevin Gausman. Well-deserved. Everything he's done for the Blue Jays, he's just been phenomenal. I think he's got to at least be in the conversation for Cy Young. The only concern for Kevin Gausman, in my opinion, is what's going on with his health now. So he had to miss the last two series. So the last one, which they still managed to sweep versus the Arizona Diamondbacks, and now the current series against the San Diego Padres, he's not going to be pitching there either. So he threw a side session. We're not quite sure what's going on because he had some side soreness, had an MRI, didn't find any concerns that way. But I mean, Kevin Gausman, he's terrific as long as he's healthy enough to pitch, knock on wood. Jose Barrios, he's been fantastic after the awful season he had last year. He's really bounced back and turned it around and made me so happy, so glad that the Blue Jays went out and traded for him. So he's been wonderful. Chris Bassett, good free agent signing overall. I was very happy when it was announced. He's been a little inconsistent when he's at his best. He's just as good as any of the other guys and really up there with the better starting pitchers in baseball. Unfortunately, he can be a little inconsistent at times. At times, he isn't all that great. Overall, I really like him being on the team, and yes, he is very much an asset in that way. Yusei Kikuchi, there's been some inconsistency. He started off the season fantastic. Unfortunately, lately he's come back to earth a little bit. He's not going all that deep into games. He's given up a few runs. So, yeah, he had to be pulled early from his last start, didn't make it to 5 innings, and looked a little rough there until the Jays managed to come from behind on Sunday and win and complete the sweep of the series there. So that was fantastic. So after that, you've got a little bit of question marks after those four. So Manoah, who, as we know, was an all-star last year, was top 3 in American League Cy Young voting. He was phenomenal. You couldn't have asked for more from Alek Manoah in his sophomore season, other than to maybe have a good start in the playoffs, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. And then this season, it's really just been an enigma as to what is going on with Manoah. He was inconsistent, but then, if anything, it seemed like he kept getting worse. They finally had to make the decision to send him to the minor leagues, and then he was called back up after about 5 weeks. Myself, I was surprised that it was that soon that they called him back. Made a start against the Detroit Tigers on the Friday before the All-Star break, and he pitched really well. 6 innings, only 1 run given up. And some people were all, oh, he's back. That's it. He's fixed. And honestly, I said, let's kind of pump the brakes a little bit there. I'm a big fan of Manoah, and nobody wants him to succeed more than I do. But it is one game, and it was against the Detroit Tigers, whose offensive stats are basically the third from the bottom in all of Major League Baseball. So it wasn't Major League competition, yes, but they're certainly better out there. I wanted to see him continue what he did against another team, and unfortunately yesterday it wasn't pretty. He didn't have a good start. Some of it looked worse than it was because the umpire squeezed him really badly. He really had Juan Soto struck out, so the 2-run home run in the first inning never should have happened. And then a fluky play that led to the 3rd run. But overall, unfortunately, his own performance still left a lot to be desired. So now we don't quite know what's going on. I think he's at least getting another start. See how he does. Will that be the tiebreaker, so to speak? But then you've got Ryu coming back, and I mentioned how he's been doing and all of that. So, I mean, even potentially you've got 6 starters there. And if everybody is healthy and effective, then you've got a decision to make. Do you go with a 6-man rotation Or if not, how do you align things so that they work? Even if, knock on wood, they decide that Manoa is not quite back yet, that maybe he needs a full month in AAA or whatever just to regain what he used to have. Then if everybody else is okay, you've still got a good five-man rotation there. So is it an area where maybe the Blue Jays could benefit from trading for somebody? There's Marcus Stroman rumors all out there. I don't see that happening. Not that I wouldn't love to have him back. I'm still a Stroman fan, but for a lot of reasons, I don't see them doing that. But there's other starting pitchers out there. There's Jack Flaherty from the Cardinals, who seems to have turned his season around. There's options for them. So would I like to see them do something? Yes. If they don't, could it be enough? I think that it could if everything goes right. Same thing with the bullpen. I mean, I want it to be a very good bullpen. I want there to be few weak spots, if any, down there. And for me, all season, for the most part, there have been five guys who I can rely on who have gotten the job done more often than not. And that is Jordan Romano, Tim Meza, Eric Swanson, Nate Pearson, and Trevor Richards. Trevor Richards, and everybody was willing to give him up for dead after last season, and he's just completely turned it around. So that's five, but I wanted at least one more, if not two. Well, interesting situation with Jimmy Garcia, who, as we know, the Blue Jays signed as a free agent last season. Had quite a good season last season, and this season he's been so inconsistent that I don't know what to expect from him from one outing to the next. And there's an interesting article out there actually on Jimmy Garcia and how he's changed his glove position because apparently he thought that maybe he found something where he might have been tipping his pitches. And as we know, you let major league hitters know what's coming, and it makes a world of difference. You can even make good pitches, and a lot of the time it doesn't matter, they'll still hit it. But in Garcia's last 11 games, he has not allowed a run. He's only given up 6 hits, only one walk, and 10 strikeouts. Is Jimmy Garcia back? I really want to believe it. I'm a little skeptical. I mean, he's just broken my heart on more occasions than I can count. But if he can continue his recent success, does he become a part of the circle of trust? And if so, then you've got 6 guys you can rely on. Can Chad Green be the 7th? If all these guys go out there and do the best things that they're capable of, do you even need to trade for someone? I've been saying all along that I want them to go out and get at least one good relief pitcher. Again, there's options out there. I mean, there's Jordan Hicks from the Cardinals. There's Scott Barlow from the Kansas City Royals. There are guys that will be available and that will probably be traded somewhere. So if the Jays get one of them, that's great. If they don't, maybe they've already got enough. I'm not really sure. Excuse me a second. Well, that's actually taken a lot longer than I planned. Not a lot of time left to talk about the hitters, so maybe that'll be part 2 next week. Then again, by next week, maybe the Jays will have done something, but maybe they won't. we just don't know what's going on with Ross Atkins, what he's out there trying to do, and whether he'll have any success or not. But anyway, so a little preview for next week's episode. And on that note, that's almost all that there is for today, which does bring me to Through Blue Jays Colored Glasses. So, how about our team? And has everybody been scoreboard watching and standings watching the way I have been? Because our Blue Jays have gained a lot of ground in the last little while. After some people were writing them off for dead, some people saying they're not even going to be a playoff team. Well, guess what? They're in a playoff spot. They are not only in a playoff spot, they're in the second wild card spot, so not the third spot. Obviously, the third isn't the second, so it's not like they're barely clinging to the last spot. And they've gained a lot of ground, particularly on the Tampa Bay Rays, who, by the way, they played today, and the Baltimore Orioles also already played. Baltimore won, and Tampa Bay lost. Tampa Bay and Baltimore are in a virtual tie for first place as we speak. In fact, Baltimore has the better record by percentage points. So I still think the Blue Jays can be the first place team. When it's all said and done at the end of the season, the Jays are 5 games back of both of those teams. And I still think that their best baseball is ahead of them. I think this could really be a juggernaut when everybody does everything right that they're capable of doing. So, the Baltimore Orioles, great for them if you're an Orioles fan. After years of futility, they were a much better team last year. And now they look this year like they're probably going to be a playoff team. But you know what? They're still a young team. And we know, like, young not only chronologically, but in terms of their MLB experience. And we've seen what happens to teams that are that young and that inexperienced when they have to play down the stretch and they're not used to everything and all of the new pressures and all of that. That's more often than not, it'll take their toll on them. And I think at some point, the Baltimore Orioles are going to feel that and they're going to start to come back to earth. Heaven knows that's happened to the Jays in the last few seasons when they were the young team in terms of their experience trying to get to the playoffs. And they did in 2 of the last 3 seasons, but they didn't go anywhere once they were there. I think the Blue Jays, with the benefit of their experience, are going to end up being the better team this season. I still think we're looking at a division winner and a deep playoff run. And I'm so excited. I can't wait for it to all happen. Hope you all feel the same way. On that note, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's go Blue Jays, and I'll see you again next week.